What's up, everyone? Today is June 5th, 2022. Welcome back to the Sunday edition of the Superstream. In this video, we're going to be talking about several news stories from the past week involving the deaths of a couple of celebrities, also a mass shooting at a hospital in Tulsa, an NFL player, Jeff Gladney, dying in a car accident this past week down in Dallas, Texas. We'll talk about that news story a little bit. And also Gavin Newsom, the Lord of the Land out west in California, finally stricken with CV-19. So we'll touch base on that a little bit. Thanks to everybody who's jumping in. Little early Sunday Superstream here today. You're listening to the voice of a newly turned 37-year-old. My birthday was yesterday. Now that we're in the time of Gemini, a lot of us decoders seem to be having birthdays here. In today's video, we're going to start with this story about rapper Sidhu Moosewala, an Indian rapper who was reportedly shot and killed back on May 29th, with the news reaching the headlines on the morning of May 30th, a very significant date for this event, as we'll touch on. Sidhu Moosewala died just one day after the daughter of Master P, and these two deaths are connected through the planet Saturn. This year, May 30th, which was the date that both of these deaths were announced. Here we see Moose in the news on May 30th, and the very next day, May 30th, Master P tweeted out about his daughter dying 2 days earlier on the 28th. The fact that these two people died on the 28th and the 29th is a huge, huge part of this. Moose died on the 29th at the age of 28. Titiana died at the age of 29 on the 28th. And this year, May 30th, was the Hindu celebration of Shani Jayanti. And Shani in the Hindu religion is similar to El, the deity in the Hebrew culture. This is a personification of the planet Saturn. And this year, Monday, May 30th, was when Shani's birthday was celebrated. So we got this big Saturn ritual. So we talked about the numbers 28 and 29 in connection to the deaths of both of these people connected to the rap industry. Well, the planet Saturn takes 29 and a half years to orbit the sun. Now, notice how the Saturn return takes 10,759 days. So this is the number of days on Earth that it takes Saturn to orbit the sun. And I want to show you how this connects to the birth and death dates of both of these people. We'll start with Moosewala, born on June 11th of 1993. So when we add one Saturnian orbit to his age, notice how we get to November 25th of this year. Well, if you measure from his death to that date, you get exactly 180 days. In a recent video, we talked about 180, how significant this was to Rahu and Ketu, which is also a part of Hindu or Indian astrology and mythology. So here we see he died 180 days before his Saturn return. Well, then we look at Titiana Miller, the daughter of Master P, and her birthday was June 15th of 1992. So if we add one Saturnian period to that, we arrive at November 29th of last year, which means measuring from that date to her death on the 28th is 180 days. So Moose dies 180 days before his Saturn return. Titiana Miller dies 180 days after her Saturn return. Both of these deaths announced just a couple of hours apart on this holiday that celebrates the Saturn deity. Now, in ancient Greek mythology, the Roman god Saturn was equivalent to Cronus, who was the leader of the Titans. And the largest moon of Saturn is called Titan. And I thought this was interesting given the name of Master P's daughter, Titiana. It's kind of similar to Titan. Well, the moon Titan was discovered by an astronomer named Christian Huygens back in the year 1655. Notice how the name Christian Huygens shares 1206 gematria with Titiana Miller. And Huygens even died on a date with 126 numerology. Now, I found a really wild 6-digit match when measuring from the death of Christian Huygens to the birth of Master P and then the death of his daughter. I'm actually going to come back to this at the end of the decode because I want to talk a little bit more about this and how it connects to this new version of the calculator. Before I go on with this decode, I just want to point out that some of the reason that I haven't been doing as many videos or posts lately is because I'm working on this new version of the calculator. I've been talking about this for probably close to a year now, but I want to show you guys that we're actually getting somewhere with development, and within the next month or two, I anticipate this launch going live. So I'm going to be demonstrating some of the features of the new calculator later on in this video, but first, let's continue on through these decodes. So I want to talk a little bit more about the name Miller. So Master P, whose daughter passed away, his real last name is Miller. And the name Miller stood out to me in relation to Saturn. In the language of gematria, the planet Saturn sums to 93 and 69. These in the two most elementary ciphers, the alphabetic order, which simply assigns a number to each letter, 1 through 26 relative to its position. And then in the reverse alphabetic order, we simply flip the alphabet around. Z is 1 through A is 26. So we see that Saturn has the same numbers as Miller. And consider how the definition of Miller is someone who works or owns a grain mill. And Saturn is the god of agriculture, thus ruling the harvest. The word harvest, also 93. The rapper Moose, using capital letters, the name Moose equals 93. The other rapper who passed away. And consider how in my very last video, my Saturday Superstream last week, I talked about the death of Ray Liotta, who played Shoeless Joe Jackson in Field of Dreams. And Shoeless Joe Jackson got his start in baseball as a miller, playing in various mill teams. So back at the start of Major League Baseball, a lot of the teams were owned by various mills. So another example of how one major news ritual leads into another, this all occurring just 2 days after Ray Liotta died. Well, next I want to talk about how this is connected to a major eclipse over India. So Moose was an Indian rapper. And back in June of 2020, there was a very significant solar eclipse that passed over the Punjab province where Moose is from. And you'll see that the greatest eclipse point traveled directly over Uttarakhand, India. And I did some work on this, showing about how there was a big glacier burst in Uttarakhand exactly 33 weeks after this eclipse. But this is a really significant eclipse, not only because it passes over India, but this eclipse here was the first maximum eclipse since 1991. And a maximum eclipse is the longest one of a certain Saros series. So, notice how the planet Saturn has matching 69 gematria with eclipse. This eclipse, back in 2020, occurred on a date with numerology of 67. And notice how the name Moose equals 67 in the standard alphabetic order. 67, a number connected to blood sacrifice and human sacrifice. The number 67 also links us to the perseverance riddle, which we'll get to in a little bit. Perseverance equals 67, so does Percy. Percy 67. This Indian eclipse fell on the date 21/6, which represents the number 216. And Moose was shot on the date leaving 216 days of the year. 216 is a number connected to 666, as it's the product of 6 times 6 times 6. Remember, Saturn is the sixth planet from the sun. 666, also a very important eclipse number. The number 666 coded into the geometry, connecting the Earth, Moon, and Sun all together. This man was an Indian rapper. The word Indian equals 666. When you spell out 666 in gematria, you get 238. This is a very significant moon number, as the moon is an average of 238,000 miles from Earth on average. And Moose died 23 months and 8 days after this eclipse over the Punjab province, where he was from. So just a couple hours after we learned about his death, we learned about the death of the daughter of Master P. And notice how Master P's real first name is Percy. So this brings us to the next part of the riddle, which connects us to the Perseverance rover, which is allegedly currently crawling around the planet Mars. So Moose dies on May 29th. Now, May 29th is an important date, as this is the birthday of former President John F. Kennedy, born on May 29th in 1917, the last president to be assassinated, and he too was shot, just like Sidhu Moose Wala here. Well, notice how this holiday, Shani Jayanti, which celebrates Saturn, has matching gematria with Perseverance, this Mars rover, nicknamed Percy, again sharing a name with Master P. Now, I commonly talk about how 666 isn't just an eclipse number, but this is a number that NASA has coded into its own numerology. NASA's full name equals 666. And remember how the Perseverance rover, this is the first rover to ever have a helicopter on it? Helicopter equals 666. And last year I did a post on the date that Perseverance flew that helicopter. It was the same day that quarterback Alex Smith retired. And Alex Smith equals 666. Well, the day after we learned about the death of Master P's daughter, it was 66 weeks and 6 days since the rover landed. Now, the day before she died was 666 days after the rover was launched from Earth. The number 666 coded into these measurements actually a few ways. Now, Master P also has a famous son. So Titiana's brother was Romeo Miller, also known as Little Romeo. Now look how old Little Romeo was when his sister died, 11,970 days. Well, when you write out 666 in Jewish or Latin gematria, you get this 1197 value. This cipher, for the record, a very significant one. The new calculator will be changing the name to Latin, as this cipher is based in the ancient Latin alphabetic order. Notice the quote on the headline, too. I saw this in several places. Master P quoted that, "Life is too short." Well, notice how life is too short equals 667. And his daughter died 667 days after the launch of the Percy rover. Percy and Percy, all coming together pretty well here. Meanwhile, Master P's age on the date his daughter died was 20,120 days old. And this, of course, represents the number 212. Well, the Perseverance rover was launched on the 212th day of a leap year. Notice how the phrase ritual sacrifice has double gematria of 212 in the Thelemic ciphers. Master P's full name also matching ritual sacrifice in the ordinal methods. And his daughter's death was also connected to an eclipse. Notice how the name Master P equals 97 in reverse. The name Percy Robert Miller also equals 97 in reduction. The word death equals 97 in reverse. The phrase eclipse sacrifice also has a single reduction value of 97. And his daughter died exactly 97 weeks before the next total solar eclipse over the United States. Meanwhile, Moose died exactly 101 weeks after the eclipse over India. And that, too, is also found in the value of eclipse sacrifice, 101.97. May 30th, the date that both of these deaths were announced, connecting to both eclipses. Furthermore, the last name Miller that this family has, the name Miller also has matching gematria with eclipse. One of those numbers is 33, which is a number of ritual human sacrifice. Titiana Miller was born on the 15th of June, which is written 15/6 in most parts of the world. And this is, of course, a huge eclipse number. Eclipses always occur 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases after the last one. The word eclipse equals 156 in Hebrew. Eclipse the sun, 156, etc. Well, the name Titiana Miller also equals 1056. Her dad's name equals 1506. She died 9 months and 11 days after her brother Little Romeo's birthday, and 9/11 is the 156th prime number. Next, I wanted to touch on some numerology involving California Governor Gavin Newsom, this total clown character who it's actually hard to believe that someone like this is running an entire state full of 40 million people. But after years of locking people down and telling them they needed to get their vaccinations, Gavin Newsom finally came down with CV-19. So he took a few days off. Little vacation for him. And of course, this was incredibly by the numbers, and we knew he was always going to catch coronavirus. Just look at his birthday. This man's birthday is completely coded with the numbers of COVID-19. When you write out COVID-19, you get this Jewish value of 1010, and then it sums to 67 in reduction. Well, Gavin Newsom was born on 1010 of 67. Don't forget 67 is the 19th prime number. 19, the number right there in the disease. Also, the name Gavin Newsom, when written out, has matching gematria with coronavirus. 142, 155, and of course, 56. Now, if you write out the name COVID-19, you get an ordinal value of 72. And this is a number we commonly see coded around this disease as well. Notice how Gavin Newsom's diagnosis fell exactly 72 weeks before an eclipse crosses over his state of California. That'll be on October 14th next year. 72 weeks is also 504 days, 54 connecting to the sun. And of course, the sun's atmosphere is called the corona, which is only visible during an eclipse. The word sun also sums to 330. And look how old Gavin Newsom was when he got diagnosed. Exactly 54 years and 33 weeks. Numbers of the sun. This story was also on a date with 19 numerology. And it was the 28th of May, which is the date written 28/5 internationally. Gavin Newsom was 2,850 weeks for his diagnosis, syncing up with the date. Also, if you measure from the date that the World Health Organization declared a pandemic, which was March 11th, when everything started to get shut down, well, from that date to Newsom's diagnosis was 808 days or 809 days with the end date. And look at this. California equals 88. The governor of California named Newsom, which equals 89. Furthermore, the vaccine was first approved 530 days before Gavin's diagnosis. And look at the name Gavin. Gavin equals 53. The name COVID equals 53. And Gavin and Newsom both share gematria with COVID in reduction. Just more nonsense from the media, keeping us scared about this virus, which has a ridiculously high survival rate, a rate which just seems to be continuing to climb. But again, that's for a different platform, I suppose, other than YouTube. In the next part of this video, I wanted to touch on another mass shooting that went down in Tulsa, Oklahoma this past week on June 1st. And of course, the news is hammering these mass shootings lately, once again. And you got to think it's so anomalous, right? Because, you know, I brought this up before on this channel, but we've been getting all these shootings over the past several months, and somehow all of these shootings seem to stop back when we had the lockdowns. And that doesn't make any sense, because those lockdowns are what caused so much unhappiness, depression. But nothing was really going on back then. But now that everyone's being let back into society, all of a sudden, here comes the shootings again. You know, we're told that, hey, we're free to travel, but, oh, gas prices are 3 times as high as they were. Of course, this is all by design, right? And now we're told that this was the 233rd mass shooting already here in this this calendar year. And of course, these numbers are all fabricated as well. But I wanted to talk about how this particular shooting in Tulsa was specifically by the numbers. And it all connects to the governor of Oklahoma. But more significantly is that it connects to the old Tulsa race massacre from 1921. Now, I did some work on the Tulsa race massacre back in June of 2020 because Donald Trump held his first post-corona rally in the city of Tulsa. And this was a major symbolic place for him to do that. Because remember, at the time, the country was reeling from the George Floyd protests, right? Race in America, race relations was a huge topic. And then Donald Trump sends his first rally to Tulsa, which historically has horrible race relations. And this was just meant to stake further division in between the races, as the media is prone to do. So now we get this shooting that's also connected to the race massacre. And in order to figure this out, just simply look at the date. June 1st of 1921. June 1st, huh? Well, June 1st, just like the date of this shooting, 6/1. If you measure from June 1st of 1921 to June 1st of this year, notice how you get exactly 1,212 months. In reverse English Sumerian, a cipher which simply multiplies the reverse order by 6, the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma sums to 1,212. This shooting was at a hospital named St. Xavier, or St. Francis Hospital. And of course, St. Francis connects to Francis Xavier, a very, very important saint from the Catholic Church who helped found the Jesuit order. And in that same method, the name Francis Xavier sums to 1,212. Now, on a clock, the 1,212th minute of the day is 8:11. Now, you may say it's 8:12, understandably so. Well, consider that midnight, 12 o'clock, is actually the first minute of the day, right? So 8:11 p.m. would be the 1,212th minute of the day. Oklahoma is part of the Central Time Zone, just like I am. And look what time Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt tweeted out about this shooting. 8:11 p.m., the 1,212th minute of the day. In standard English Sumerian, total solar eclipse sums to 1212. And notice how this shooting was 179 days after the last total solar eclipse. 179, like the gematria of Tulsa Race Massacre, 179. this mass shooting falling on the anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Furthermore, 179 is also the 41st prime number, and Tulsa, Oklahoma has this 41 as well. They told us that this is the 233rd mass shooting, and 233, this is a big eclipse number as well. 1331 equals 233. And again, the reason we're connecting this to the eclipse code is because St. Francis, which is the name of this hospital, was a founder of the Jesuit order who uses the eclipsed sun as its emblem. The phrase Tulsa Race Massacre even has matching gematria with total solar eclipse in Hebrew. And back in 2020, Donald Trump held a rally 99 years after the Tulsa Race Massacre. Notice how Tulsa, Oklahoma, when abbreviated, has this 99 value. Just like the moon. The moon equals 99. Well, measuring from the birth of St. Francis to this shooting at St. Francis Hospital, Francis Xavier would have been exactly 6,900 sidereal months old. This is a lunar orbit, which is about 27 and a half days. A sidereal month, yeah, about 27.32 days. So 69, well, the word eclipse equals 69. So does the word false flag, or the phrase false flag, 69 and 156. 156, that big eclipse number. Remember, eclipse the sun, 156 and 69. Also remember how St. Francis was born in the year 1506, right? You got that 156. The governor of Oklahoma, who tweeted about this incident on the 1212th minute of the day, was a span of 156 days after his birthday. Francis Xavier's birthday was even April 7th. You could also connect this number to the eclipse code, right? Because total eclipse is 47. But look at the name John Kevin Stitt, this governor. John is 47, Kevin is 74, Stitt is 47. And then Kevin Stitt, in the alphabetic order, is 149, like Tulsa, Oklahoma. This 149 also shared by Francis Xavier, 149. And the shooting fell on a date with 49 numerology. As far as the date June 1st, the governor's names, John and Kevin, also sum to 61. And look at the address of the hospital that this shooting was at. A shooting on 6/1 at a hospital with 6161 gematria. Recall how the phrase active shooter equals 61. Active shooter also 191, like St. Francis. In fact, the governor's full name even sums to 61. John Kevin Stitt, 61. And look at this. He also has an 1861. Well, 61 is the 18th prime number. And then Tulsa, Oklahoma equals 18. One last thing about this shooting is that it happened 711 days after the rally that Donald Trump held there. And notice how Tulsa, Oklahoma sums to 711. And then Tulsa Race Massacre, or Tulsa Massacre equals 711 in Jewish gematria. This shooting at a hospital was also on a Wednesday. All of those numbers syncing up. So, just more nonsense. And think about how none of these major shootings in the news ever make any sense, right? Like, nobody's, like, being vengeful on anything. They're just randomly shooting people who don't have anything to do with their misery. I mean, it's just total nonsense. All right, Next topic I wanted to touch on was the death of an NFL player. And this is also connected to the number 1212. I believe this was just 2 days before the shooting in Tulsa. So the story here is that NFL player Jeff Gladney was driving a car with his girlfriend when he got in a car accident in Dallas, Texas, resulting in both of their deaths. And this has been common lately, right? Remember we had Henry Ruggs, a wide receiver for the Raiders, who got in a car accident killing a woman. Last month, we had NFL player Dwayne Haskins get hit by a dump truck while walking on the freeway. An incredibly bizarre story. And this one is kind of connected. Jeff Gladney dying on May 30th. So, Gladney played for the Arizona Cardinals, but he never actually appeared in a game for the team. Gladney's entire career was spent playing for the Minnesota Vikings. And Minnesota, especially Minneapolis, is the land of the number 93, as it sits right on the 93rd meridian. And notice how Minneapolis, Minnesota is 93. All of the sports teams from Minnesota have connections. Minnesota Timberwolves 93, Minnesota Vikings 93, the Minnesota Twins 93, and Minnesota Wild, the hockey team, even equals 193. When Jeff Gladney died, he was exactly 9,300 days old. And, of course, 93, a number connected to Jesus and the crucifixion. God's Son equals 93, Nazareth 93, Crucifix 93. And the crucifixion is even said to have occurred on April 3rd, the 93rd day of the year, between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. So when you write out Jesus Christ, you get this value of 151, and this is another major number in this story. Gladney died in the city of Dallas, which is home to the Dallas Cowboys, which sums to 151. Dallas is the city where President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. Dead in Dallas, Texas, as we touched on earlier. Well, measuring from John F. Kennedy's birthday to the death of Jeff Gladney is exactly 105 years and 1 day, like the number 151. Gladney died 15 weeks and 1 day after the last NFL game, Super Bowl 56. The day after his death, when it was circulating headlines, was the 151st day of the year. But look at this number 1051, which was found in the age of JFK, Gladney dying about a mile from where JFK died. 1051 is the 177th prime number. Remember, the Jesuit order is 177. Eclipse of the sun, 177. And Jeff Gladney died exactly 177 days after the last total solar eclipse. So as we mentioned earlier, the phrase total solar eclipse also has this 1212 value. Now this 1212 is super significant to total solar eclipses. Remember how lunation 1212 started with the 2020 total solar eclipse, and total solar eclipse 1212 and 202. Look at the birthday of Jeff Gladney, December 12th, written 1212. In college, Gladney wore number 12. But look at this strange detail about this guy's death. It was reported that he died driving a Mercedes-Benz, and his girlfriend's name was Mercedes. So, I mean, I don't even need to say how crazy this is, right? Girlfriend Mercedes, also dead in a Mercedes. Well, speaking of the Super Bowl, which I did earlier here, there was a Super Bowl played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium back in 2019, and measuring from that game to his death was 1,212 days. The game that was played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium was Super Bowl 53. And look at the date that Gladney died, May 30th, written 5/30, like the number 53. Super Bowl 53 even fell 53 days after Jeff Gladney's birthday. And the date he died was Memorial Day. Memorial Day equals 53. This connected to the assassination of John Kennedy. John Kennedy, also 53. And it makes sense that we would get such a strong connection to the number 53 for football. This is a very important number to the NFL, where teams of 53 men play on a field that's 53 yards wide. And in this game, Super Bowl 53, there was only one touchdown scored, and it was scored exactly 53 minutes into the game. The Rams, who scored only 3 points on this game, those 3 points came on a 53-yard field goal. And when we talk about NFL players dying in car accidents, remember Dwayne Haskins. And Dwayne Haskins was born on May 3rd, written 5/3. Now, there's another connection to the number 53 that I found pretty significant. There's an obvious riddle connected to Mercedes-Benz with this death. Measuring from the founding date of Mercedes-Benz to the date that this man died is 35,035 days. 35, of course, the inversion of 53. But what's wild about this measurement is that 35,035 days equates exactly to 51 years on the planet Mars, 51 Martian orbits. And in the alphabetic order, the planet Mars equals 51. Measuring from the death of Dwayne Haskins to the death of Jeff Gladney was 51 days. And Haskins died under the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. Meanwhile, Gladney died under the sign of Gemini, which is a Mercury sign. And think about Mercury, Mercedes, the same first 4 letters. I even made a post a while ago explaining how the Mercedes-Benz logo was coded into a major mercurial ritual at the Mandalay Bay. Feel free to check my post on that out. But notice how Mercedes has this gematria value of 222. And here we are with a big Mercedes ritual in the year 2022. Now, what's also so interesting about the fact that he died in the city of Dallas is that back in April 12th, I made this long video about the deaths of 3 different men connected to the NFL during the Masters. And all 3 of those men were connected to Mike McCarthy by the numbers. Not just by the numbers, but also logically as well. And this death then that's connected to Dwayne Haskins goes down in Dallas. 2 days after Jeff Gladney died, another former Dallas Cowboy player died, Marion Barber III. I have not done a decode on his death, but I imagine there's a lot of synchronicities here. So, feel free to run the numbers on that story too. Shout out to Bobby for hiding my new favorite account that's ever said anything on this channel. What a hilarious name. All right, so we're about 40 minutes in. This was never going to be a long video. I do have a couple more stories I want to touch on. But for this one, I kind of want to show you guys how this new calculator works. And some of the finds I made in this post were just, me just typing things in and using this functionality. So the story here in the news was that the man who tried to kill Ronald Reagan back in 1981 is getting a full unconditional release from prison. And not only that, but somehow this guy became like a celebrity while he was in jail. He's now an aspiring musician. He's got more YouTube subscribers than this channel. So if you ever want to become famous, don't try to teach numerology. Well, you shouldn't really go shooting people either, but you see how crazy this all is. He was found not guilty by insanity, I guess, back then. And the whole story is that he carried the shooting out because he was trying to impress Jodie Foster. So if you think fake news is more ridiculous now than it's ever been, I think it's always been ridiculous, right? Like, who would ever believe that somebody would try shooting a sitting president to impress an actress that he didn't know? That's so crazy to believe. Like, people actually bought that story? I don't know. So, this story was kind of by the numbers, and I didn't really dig too deep into it, but it was 243 mercurial orbits after the death of John F. Kennedy. And John Hinckley, the man who shot Reagan, has the same birthday as John F. Kennedy. So we're talking about JFK a lot here. There's an obvious JFK theme going on. And Hinckley was actually born 38 years after JFK. And 38, that number of death, right? Death is 38. So, yeah, let's just kind of go over this calculator. And I want to show you guys some of the new features I'm working on. First of all, the history table. You'll notice now that there's a drop-down for everything that you've placed in the history. And there's just a few options here. Might add a couple more. But this, first of all, allows you to move the item down through the history. So if you're looking to make graphics based on this, you can order the table however you want. You can also take any item and place it in the table in order to pull up the gematria for that. So if I want to look at the gematria of the sun, place in table, and it'll show it up here. Of course, the styling that we're working on, this is all just first generation, so it will look a little better, but, we have our breakdown like normal. You can also take a look at the chart, just like the current calculator. If you want a picture of the breakdown, you can simply click that and you'll get a little image here that you can download. So for people who are looking to use this to decode, to make videos, to make graphics for their blog, that's what this is all being made in mind with. So I think that's pretty cool. Another feature that you'll see down on the table here is remove, right? So this is something everyone's always wanted, is when you accidentally add something to the table, they want to be able to remove it. Well, now you finally can. You can also do this by holding Shift and hitting Delete. It'll take it right out of the table for you. But really what this whole calculator is designed for is helping find matches between the values that are in this table. Because right now, you look at everything and, well, I guess you could make some connections, but it's kind of difficult, right? You just have this wall of numbers that you're looking at. So the idea here is that you'll be able to highlight and click Find Matches. And when you do this, you'll get a new type of table that pops up. And what happens is it scans through your entire history table and finds the matches to the active phrase. So we'll see here that the only number found in the gematria of Tatiana Miller that's in this table is 77. And 77 syncs up with Mars and new calculator, right? So if I look at this, I know for certain that none of these other numbers are in this table except for 77. It's the only one. And just like, you can hit Find Matches, you can also click Match up here. Or you hit Shift-Enter. And, of course, this calculator isn't live yet, so I'm probably teaching you guys more than I need to. But, yeah, this is all really cool. And what's neat about this is, just like now, you can navigate through the history, right, with the down and up arrows. Just hit down and up, and you'll scan through the table. So here you can quickly find matches, right? You hit Shift-Enter, and it'll match. You hit down, Shift-Enter, down, Shift-Enter, and it'll find matches with each item on the table. So this is going to take, minutes and maybe hours off of some of your decodes as far as finding matches. It just makes everything so simple. And I'm going to be expanding the functionality here too, because right now there's only one history table that's open, but you'll be able to search through many different history tables. Each user who's signed up will have several of their own custom tables to search through. And then we're also going to start categorizing items that are in the big match database so that people can pull in tables and use those to search through as well. So this next generation of the calculator is going to blow everything I've made to this point out of the water. And really looking forward to bringing this functionality. One other cool thing that this does is that when there's nothing in the field or when you hit match number, it gives you this new menu down here. And what this does is instead of matching just the phrase that's in the calculator, it actually looks at all the numbers in the entire table and lists out the biggest numbers that have matches. So right now we have a list, and I'll be adding different ways to sort through this. But notice the number 450 is on top here. And what this tells us is that the number 450 was matched. Well, this is the largest number that was matched in the table. So here we see that the words Sun and Neptune both equal 450. Here we see a number that's been matched more than once. The number 90. 90 shows up in Titan, the Moon, and Jupiter. The number 107 a couple times here. So not only will it match the phrase that you have entered, but it'll match everything in the history table and give you the biggest numbers. So once again, slicing time off of our decodes. That's really the goal here. And yeah, after typing, just the name John Hinckley Jr. from this story into the calculator, I typed in, Ronald Reagan, I typed in Jodie Foster, things like that. And look how, all of this stuff that I found, it just popped out, right? So first of all, John Hinckley Jr. summing to the same numbers as Ronald Reagan and Reagan, the president he shot. Hinckley actually shot several people, one of them James Brady, who ultimately died from his injuries 33 years later, right? Well, notice how the name John Hinckley matches James Brady in English. John Hinckley Jr. was trying to impress Jodie Foster, both of them with 972 gematria. John Hinckley and Ronald Reagan both sharing gematria with March 30th, the date that he was shot. John Hinckley also sharing numbers with Reagan. Notice how the phrase "time to rock and roll" is in quotes in the headline. Well, this phrase syncs up with John Hinckley Jr. in Gematria 652. As far as connections to other news stories, I actually did a post on Ronald Reagan back in March because quarterback Baker Mayfield was replaced in Cleveland. And Baker Mayfield's middle name is Reagan. Meanwhile, Ronald Reagan's middle name is Wilson, which is the name that appears on an NFL football. So everything that happens with Baker Mayfield is connected to Ronald Reagan. And if you measure from the date that Baker Mayfield was replaced to the date of this story, you get 77 days. And 77 is the gematria of Baker Reagan Mayfield and Baker Mayfield. Also, Houston, he was replaced by a Houston quarterback. Ronald Reagan from the city of Tampico, which equals 77. And notice how these all sum to 112 as well. Well, Ronald Reagan died at the age of exactly 1,120 months old. He was shot 112 days after John Lennon was killed. And Reagan's birthday falls 112 days before John Hinckley's birthday, the guy who shot him. All right, so I did want to do one more thing. In regards to this new calculator that we're working on here, I wanted to quick show a preview of the date calculator. Now, when it comes to styling, understand that this date calculator is super ugly, right? But some of the functionality in here is actually really awesome. So the current date calculator just has the options to show 2 dates, right? You have this date on the left, this date on the right, your numerologies, and the duration between. The only other real function here is to add and subtract from the date on the left, which is cool. We'll have this on the new one as well. But what I've found a lot of use for is this date grid calculator. So just to kind of show you how this works, we begin by simply adding dates into the grid. So you have your 2 date fields up here, and let's say I want to add today and 1 year ago today. We can add both of those dates. And you can, or as soon as you get more than one date, you get this table. And what this table will show you is the duration between all of the dates in the table at once. So here I have a few of my own custom dates, right? Like my birthday. I can click my birthday and it'll load it into the table automatically. If I want to load major eclipses, I can simply click Great American Eclipse 1 and 2, right? So as we populate this table, we see the number of days between all of these dates. So from my birthday to the first eclipse, from my birthday to today, from my birthday to the second eclipse. So what this does is this takes a lot of work out of, constantly putting different dates into here and measuring back and forth and now comparing date A to B and then date C to B and then date D to A. Like, now you can just do it and look at it all at once. Similarly, you can, add months, years, weeks, things like that. There's also a full display where you can look at all of the different durations at once. There's also a planetary count calculator here. So whenever I'm looking at a duration, I can switch this to the planetary counts. So this shows me how many orbits it's been for each of the planets since these dates, right? So we have the moon, the planet Mercury, all the way through Pluto, which you probably won't use, but we also get synodic periods as well. So synodic periods for the moon, synodic orbits for all the planets. You'll also see when the next orbit is completed from the first date and how many days until that next orbit's completed. And what's so cool about this is that all of these durations are searchable. So let's say I want to find all of the times that the number 128 is coded into a duration here. Well, I can punch in 128, and we get 3 matches, right? So from the second Great American Eclipse to the anniversary of today, 1 month and 28 days. You'll be able to turn the whole anniversary functionality off, but from the second eclipse to the anniversary of my birthday, 1 month, 28 days with the end date. So still working on exactly how to display all this, but this has come in handy for me recently while decoding, where I'll be looking at a number on the gematria table and thinking, wait a minute, where did I just see that number? And I'll punch it in here, right? And it'll give me the measurements that that number connects to. So if I want to look for 113, well, hey, from today to the next eclipse is 1 year, 10 months, and 3 days. Ultimately, this date calculator will be connected to the main calculator so that numbers you see on this table, it'll alert you when there's a match to the date calculator. So this is going to result in a lot of matches that people will kind of have to sort through and figure out whether or not they're relevant. But at least a lot of that match finding will be done for you. So again, we're climbing out of the stone age of decoding here and really trying to bring this into the next generation. Again, this date calculator needs a little bit of work yet, some polishing, but functionally it's awesome, and I really look forward to sharing that. I may have touched on this in previous videos as well, but I also wanted to quick show the Bible search tool that is pretty much done. A few little kinks to work out here, but I think people will find use of this when they're decoding. Lord knows I've found a lot of use for this. There's so many biblical riddles that are going on in the media. A lot of it has to do with gematria found in the Bible. So what I did is I uploaded the Masonic King James Bible into a database, ran the gematria on all the phrases, which was previously only listed in an Excel file, and now I made that searchable through a web interface. So let's say you want to find all of the Bible verses that sum to 666. Well, you can just plug in the number 666, and it'll show you all of the Bible verses that have gematria of 666 in the selected ciphers. You can also see like how many verses it is between the listed verses here, right? Which I'm not sure how handy that'll be, but I think it could be relevant. And then with any of these Bible verses, you just click on it, and it pulls up the verse, it pulls up the text, and then it tells you more details about the verse, like how many verses are left in the Bible, how many words, letters, and characters are in this verse, so on and so forth. And you can scan to the next verse with that gematria, 666, 666, right? Now let's say I want to find all the Bible verses that contain the number 666 and the word son. Let's see if that even works. I think I have to do match all. So there's one Bible verse in the entire Bible that sums to 666 and contains the word son. And that would be Ecclesiastes 6:1. Now you also have the ability to include the Bible verse, right? So here, if you include the Bible verse in the gematria, you'll see what I mean here. So Genesis 9:15. So this time, you'll see it includes Genesis 9:15 in the calculation, and now we get the 666. Now, if I disable that, we won't find this verse. So yeah, I mean, you can also look for any Bible verses that, let's say, sum to 999 and like 999 and 666. Are there any that sum to both? No. But you can also search for verses that sum to either 666 and 999. So I guarantee there's going to be a lot of cool stuff we discover from this. Like I said, I've already featured it in several of my videos talking about connections to the Bible. I love this thing, so that'll be also available to members. And, you know, a lot of people have been asking, do I have a Patreon or anything like that? I do not have a Patreon. I don't want to get involved with Patreon, honestly, because they can shut you down and cut you off from all your subscribers. So we are building our own platform so that if somehow I do get taken off the internet, I don't lose contact to all the subscribers. And this way, you know, I don't feel bad for asking for money. Like, I know that a lot of my content is pretty good and probably worth a Patreon, but now I'm able to give all you guys the tools that you need to also decode for yourselves while providing good content that hopefully people will support. So I'm super excited about where this is going, and I think, you know, a year from now, this community, this knowledge, it's just going to keep exploding based on where we're at now. So yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I'm probably going to wrap this video up. I guess I will give you one little quick decode here before I finish up. And this has to do with the ongoing NBA Finals. Game 2 being played tonight. But Game 1 had a really funny incident take place in it. And, you know, I haven't done much work on sports lately. Again, I've been focusing on the website. You know, so whereas other people may be taking breaks for writing a book or something, yeah, for me, it's the website. Now, I watched Game 1 for a little bit, and I noticed a play that happened when the score was 60-66. And I have what I call a ritual radar, where I see something weird happen on TV during a game or whatever, and it dawns on me, wait a minute, that's a number ritual. You can just tell by how something plays out. And when I saw this play, that radar went crazy. It all begins, of course, with the 666 on the screen, so we know there's something here. I noticed that Al Horford and Draymond Green, the two guys who were involved in this play, they wear number 42 and 23. Now, in the book of Revelation, the beast rules for 42 months. And if you divide 2 by 3, you get .666. So both of these numbers are connected to 666. The score is 666. And they blew the whistle with 8:20 on the clock. And when you write out the number 82, it sums to 666. So I was like, okay, these two guys are definitely connected by the numbers 666. So first I looked up Al Horford's birthday. Al Horford was born on 3/6. And, of course, 666 is the 36th triangular number. And on the date of this game, he was a span of exactly 36 years old. Now, when you write out 666, it sums to 275. Well, Draymond Green and Al Horford, their birthdays are separated by a span of 275 days. When you write out 666, it sums to 2,083. Well, Al Horford's full name sums to 283. And not only was it his 36th birthday, his birthday on 3/6, but Draymond Green was born on the 63rd day of the year. And it makes sense that we would get a big 666 tribute with the Boston Celtics. Remember 666 is 156, just like triple sixes? This play occurred 33 minutes into the game. 33 equals 156. And, of course, Boston Celtics, 156. Remember 33 also 66 and 60, like the score of the game, right? Now, the 33rd prime number is 137, right? 33, 137. Well, the name Horford equals 33. The name Green equals 137. And there's exactly 1,370 days between their two birthdays. So not only are these games during the finals rigged, but they'll actually stage ridiculous number rituals like this too. So, yeah, there you have it. All right, everyone. Well, I think I'm pretty much done here. Going to wrap this video up. Thanks to everybody for jumping in, whether you're watching live or archived. Your viewership is always appreciated and really the only thing that keeps this channel going, since YouTube's algorithms are not our friends anymore. So with that, that'll do it. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to y'all next time. See ya.